Colonel Walls and Chief Wilfong here. Just wanted to take some time and walk through some questions that we've been getting as we continue to work through this challenging time. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chief here to ask me some questions that have been kind of on people's minds. Chief?
Right, sir. Thank you. So I've reached out to some airmen, asked fellow chiefs, and these are some questions that they gave me that they're super curious about. So first thing is, recently there was a stay-at-home order that was issued.
Yeah.
What does that stay-at-home order mean exactly to us here at Team Moody?
Essentially, we have already been doing all that already. We did step up to the next level, and that this is an enforceable order for our active duty airmen. Additionally, we are trying to clarify that this does, as a county order, it does apply to our families that live within the county. And so it really effectively doesn't change most of what we've been doing. But it does kind of hopefully clarify that what is enforceable versus what is still a suggestion from local authorities. And as we've said from the very beginning, highly, highly encourage all of our airmen, family, community to stay at home to the max extent practical, with full understanding that there are some things we still need to be able to get out and do.
I also hear that we're moving to Health Protection Condition Charlie. That's going to happen pretty soon. What can we expect with that?
It is. So that'll be a visible change that we'll see around base. One visible thing that folks will see is that we're going to move our Tier 1 screening that you have seen at the commissary. That's going to move out to the front gate. And the idea there is that we are trying to look for and screen for anybody that's either had the travel or is potentially symptomatic, and then divert them either off base to find other resources or send them through Tier 2 screening, which is the medical group screening that happens on a daily basis. And that way, anytime we have somebody that could potentially be carrying the virus, we need to get them in to be medically screened and then into isolation and quarantine.
I know since all this started, we've been spending a lot of time really trying to slow the spread of the virus.
Yeah.
With that, we provide combat power for the nation. That's why we exist. And I hear that we're going to start dialing the mission up a little bit to start to preserve that combat power. Why are we doing that?
From the very beginning, when we had our first confirmed case and we had to essentially stand down operations, the idea at that point was we didn't know how widespread the virus was. And so we had to have some time with very little happening on base to be able to characterize how widespread the virus was. Once we got an idea using our medical screening and kind of working through that, now by using CDC recommended guidance and all of the protocols that we've got in place, now we need to turn some of those mission operations back on. But as we said from the very beginning, this is always going to be a balance between limiting the spread of the virus with preserving that combat force and readiness. We still have a mission to do that we've got to be prepared to do, and we will be assessing each individual kind of aspect of that mission as we go forward, making sure that we can do it safely, but we've got to be able to preserve some of that mission force and readiness.
With that, though, we have a stay-at-home order, and now you're asking airmen to come in and start to preserve that combat power. What measures are you putting in place that protect those families from any sort of exposure from that airman being at work?
It's okay to acknowledge that there are concerns out there, and it's okay to have a little bit of fear. This is, in some ways, can be a frightening time, and we need to take it seriously. But what we are doing is we are using all the available guidance so that we are not spreading the virus as we turn some of those missions back on. As we do some of that, a critical component of this is to continue to make sure that anybody that becomes symptomatic is not going back into the population, and we quickly limit the spread of that. This is not going back to the mission as it was. We're not just turning the flying operation back on. It is going to be a very predictable, measured build-up in capability, ensuring that the measures we have in place are working, that they are effective, and they are safe. And we'll continue to assess on a daily basis, really, as we move forward.
So, unfortunately, the fitness center is closed, and the airmen out there are always looking for a way to PT. And with that, what are you doing now that the fitness center is closed? What are you doing to PT?
Great question, Chief. No, I fortunately enough, I've been I've been getting out and running more. And for me, that's good because I've always been a runner. Running is great because you can have good social distancing while you're running, and there's plenty of space to do it. Getting outside, and I've seen folks doing the push-ups and the sit-ups out and the outdoor stuff. There are things you can do as long as we're staying away from each other and kind of especially out in the outdoors that are great, and it's good to get out and get some exercise.
Right. So the DFAC just opened back up recently, and you made the decision to keep all the dorm airmen on BAS for at least another 30 days. What sort of drove you to make that decision?
A couple things. So the DFAC, it was at the kind of center of the initial outbreak here, and so we needed to make sure we had it cleaned. There's a very specific set of guidelines and rules that we have to comply with when it comes to entitlements and money. But in general, what we're trying to do is ensure that we can safely feed our airmen and that we have valid options.
So the local community, Lowndes County and surrounding cities they're dealing with this as well. How often are you talking to those individuals?
We communicate daily with local medical officials, local and state and county officials, and we're cross-sharing data. We're trying to understand what's happening downtown. We are sharing what's happening on base and sharing across to ensure that we are, to the max extent possible, in lockstep with local authorities. But at a minimum, we're on a daily telecon. And then a lot of us have counterparts out in the community that we're communicating with on a continual basis via text and phone call and stuff like that. So it is, as has been noted in the past, it's a great community relationship here at Moody that stays true through difficult times, and we are continuing to stay in touch with everybody downtown.
So I keep hearing that this is going to be the new normal. What does that mean exactly, the new normal?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chief. And you and I were talking earlier. We lived through 9/11 and saw the effect and some of the immediate aftermath of both the attack itself, but then for years afterwards, daily, weekly, monthly changes that would come out. And I think in many ways we're seeing a similar event in the world right now. I think the important thing is on a daily basis, we are continuing to make the mission happen. We're continuing to assess what's going on, and we're getting after it. And as we live through the daily challenges right now, which is, restrictions on food, restrictions on movement, staying at home, we'll look back on this eventually and kind of remember that aspect of it. But in terms of what the new normal looks like, I think that is being defined on a daily basis, and it won't be set for a long time to come.
Right, absolutely. Sir, you've been jobbing it pretty hard, and I know you have wife and a couple young kids at home. Mm-hmm. How's your family holding up through all this? How are you holding up through all this?
We're doing good. It's the boys are they're 4 and 5 years old, so they get to watch an extra cartoon here and there, and they get to do some school on the iPad, and they're doing great. And Betsy and I are working our way through it just like everybody else is. And I think it's amazing to see what all is out there in terms of school for the kids and communication capabilities these days with all the different means we have to communicate face to face with people that are both maybe next door that we're not talking to in person, or across the nation as our families are each struggling with this in their own ways, sometimes spread by many miles. But we're getting through it, and it's and it does, there's some fun parts to it where, the family can get together and have an extra movie night or something. And so we're doing good.
What do you want to say to the families out there? Because there's a lot of families that are scared right now.
It's okay to have some fear. It's okay to have concerns and anxiety. That is normal. That is natural. And what I'd like to say to, the entire community is, hey, we as Flying Tigers, we as Team Moody, we as airmen, as an Air Force, and we as Americans have all faced really tough times before in all our lives, and from personal levels all the way up to national and global issues. We will see some challenging times ahead, but as long as we all, keep the faith with each other and support each other, communicate with each other, and keep an eye on what's important. So we are complying with doing the best we can to limit the spread of the virus and protect our community to the max extent possible. while still keeping an eye on that mission element, we'll get through this. And ultimately, I have no doubt that we as a community will prevail.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your candid and honest answers.
Yeah. Thanks, Chief. You too.